let's jump on to our second segment, which is going to be another panel discussion. The topic is Step Forward of Investigations, E-Discovery and Litigation Management, and I would like to invite Mr. Bhavin Mehta, Vice President and Head of Compliance, Mastercard, Mr. Ahmed Kandil, Regional Head Ethics and Compliance, TMEA Bausch Health Companies, and Ms. Mumtaz Bhalla, Partner at L&L Partner Law Offices. Can I have you on stage, please? So we have already, kind of asked our virtual attendees to send the questions. So we have certain questions, like 6 to 7 questions. So Mr. Mehta, Ms. Bhalla, and Mr. Kandil, they'll be introducing themselves, and then I'll be asking those questions to them directly. Over to you, Mr. Mehta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Bharti, for the quick introduction. Guys, I've a little bit about myself. First, I want to introduce myself and then talk about the topic itself. So let me start, and then I'll pass on to my colleagues on my left. So as Bharti said, I lead the compliance at Mastercard. I have been in the region for last now close to 14 years. I'm basically from India, Mumbai. But Dubai now is a second home. So I have worked with few companies here in Dubai in the past 14 odd years, working into audits, financial compliance, and then I've moved on to the legal compliance part. So unlike all of you, when I heard the introductions in the morning, I was thinking I'm kind of odd man out because I thought I'm the only one who's not a lawyer here. But now I think it makes me comfortable because Ahmed has joined, and he too, like me, is not a lawyer. So that makes me a little comfortable talking about the topic. So about the topic itself, right? Investigations and e-discovery. Investigation, as we heard in the morning sessions from Alize and also from Mr. Hassan, about how compliance or having an effective compliance programs plays a key role in managing the risk of the business and making sure that companies are able to manage the reputation part of that. Investigations is one of the crucial elements of the compliance program or effective compliance program as we put across. Not having investigations team or program itself exposes companies to regulatory interventions, and also from a reputational perspective, it's kind of a significant thing these days where everybody, every customer, every vendor, even employees, I mean, if I look up for a job, I will want to be partnering or associated with an organization which has a reputation in the market. And this reputation gets built by doing the right thing. Mr. Hassan mentioned in the morning about doing right things again and again. And investigation, while it does not directly lead to that, but it acts as a hindrance from people doing bad things or making sure that bad actors do not have opportunities to do those wrongdoings. So again, I think we have moved in light of this whole digital transformation, working virtually. We see that investigations too has gone under tremendous change of how they have been done compared to before. So we'll talk something about those in the questions that we might get. And also I think my colleagues, let me hand it over to them to speak about the topic itself. Thank you.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, I'm so happy to see you again. I could see some international colleagues in the venue here, which is actually amazing thing after 1 year lockdown. So thank you for coming, and looking forward to have a more interactive session today. And we're ready to answer your questions. As a quick introduction about myself, I used to work in this industry. So I'm coming from healthcare industry. I used to work in this industry since almost 18 years so far. I'm a Dubai person since 10 years, so I could see myself, like Bhavin said, we belong more to Dubai. I'm looking after ethics and compliance in Turkey, Middle East, and Africa in a company called Bausch Health for medical devices, consumer, and pharma products. As we're talking about investigation topic today, Actually, in compliance program, we have two directions. We have the proactive and we have the reactive. Investigation, one of the reactive approaches that companies are taking after receiving any complaint or any case. So they take the reactive approach to investigate and correct and mitigate the action and avoid having the same problem again in the future. Having said that, investigation can also consider as a proactive approach, because by having the investigation and investigating this and identifying the problems, we are protecting the company from any potential, maybe significant risk in the future. So by taking the activities and measures, we can transform the reactive approach coming from investigation into proactive approach. In addition to that, investigation protects the company, as Bhavin just said. In addition to that, we're giving a confidence to our partners and our employees that we react to any problems we receive from their hotline or anything that can promote the speak-up culture and establish a successful compliance environment, which is the target or the main objective that each company would like to achieve by hiring and dedicating resources for compliance organization. I think by that, we're looking forward to have more questions and answer all of them in the coming 30 minutes. Mumtaz, and over to you.
Thank you, Ahmed. I'm Mumtaz. I'm a disputes lawyer from India. I primarily practice in the criminal and litigation side. As Bhavin said that he's the odd one out, I think I'm the odd one out in this panel because I'm the only lawyer and these both of them are compliance people. So I'm going to give a little legal perspective about how investigations and investigation trends work in India. India is a very diverse market. In a radius of almost 5 kilometers, you will find a lawyer who's very, prim and proper with his iPad, with all highlighted footnotes, ready to argue a matter. But in the same radius of 5 kilometers, you'll find a lawyer who's struggling to even log on to a virtual hearing. And with COVID, the world has gone virtual, and people who are not very well equipped with technology have got to know that the drawbacks that have come in. India probably is the only country where petitions have been filed despite a surge in the COVID cases to have a physical hearing resumed because of the challenges faced by lawyers. And if that's the situation of the lawyers, we can very well understand what the situation of the investigating agencies would be. Because while there are different softwares and AI technologies being brought in by the Indian government to make them well equipped in carrying out their investigations, especially after issues of money laundering that have come up in the last 7 years or 8 years, there are a lot of challenges faced by them in handling those softwares. As a litigator, I can tell you that there are often cases where I'm handling investigations. I'm assisting the investigators in their investigation, and we have to tell them how things are panning out, like a teacher teaches the students, because they are totally clueless about a crime. So recently, I've been working on one cyber crime in a state in Maharashtra, where there are some licenses which have been procured on forged documents. Those are import-export licenses. And I know what a task it has been for me to get the documents procured as a method of investigation from the investigator, because the police investigator, despite heading a cybercrime investigation, is clueless about it. So while the world is advancing towards things like e-investigation, e-discovery, India is a step forward in the right direction, but there are a lot of hurdles to be crossed before it. So yeah, let's take some questions and answer that. Thank you.
Yeah, and you clearly see we have a diverse team, right? So again, I said I'm not a lawyer, and so is Ahmed, but we have the right person to talk about litigations and give you a picture of what happens once investigation is commenced or probably closed. So we are happy to take questions. Bharti, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mehta, first question is for you. What are the different types of investigations that take place in corporate world, and how matters required to be investigated gets discovered?
Thanks for the question, Bharti. And I think it's really kind of a kind of start point which happens with related to investigations. But let me take a step back and kind of explain what is investigation and what we really mean when we say investigations, right? I mean, obviously, we are all lawyers or compliance experts, and so we generally talk a lot in terms of investigating matters and also kind of talking about litigation. But in simple sense, investigation is talked through across different functions in business. It's not only legal or compliance that talks about investigation. For me, in simple sense, it's kind of an activity where you kind of go finding the facts or probably try to gather information to conclude on a particular allegation or to probably manage a risk management practice, right? Again, I think why this is important to give you before answering the question is to kind of help or get into what different types of investigations are in an organization and what they each relate to. So, as I said, I mean, investigation kind of are based on finding or rather fact finding for an allegation, or kind of if a company has a risk management practice, it's based more on the research that they try to evaluate certain facts. Types of investigations, again, I would say there are various types of investigations that happens across in the organization, right from HR to security or to compliance, legal, regulatory. But I would say, having spent over 10 years now in the compliance field, I see that most common issues which gets investigated, and again, I mean, I gave that background earlier of what investigation is. It's for a reason, right? I think when we look at the investigation part from an allegation perspective, it is more internally focused. When our employees or our third parties or customers, they allege something and they want to probably find the facts. So most common types of investigations: employee misconduct, workplace violations. Those are the types where there is conflict of interest or violence, or I think Alize did mention in the beginning, those are the types of sexual harassment, discrimination cases. The other type of more common issues are more regulatory and policy issues, where employees might have breached money laundering piece, or there is sanctions, anti-corruption, data privacy, IP-related matters. So those are more like, I would say, serious types of issues and requires companies to have specialized team in investigating those. And the third type is more related to financial crime area, or I would say the theft part or abuse of company assets and resources by employees. So again, these are more like common. I mean, again, I can go into 2 hours kind of talking about the different types of investigation, but more broadly, from an allegation part, these are the types of issues. The other part, the more externally focused part, which I mentioned about being driven by the risk management activity of company, it relates to kind of making sure that we have right third party or due diligence processes when we employ somebody. I think the KYE part or the KYC part, knowing that you're dealing with the right third parties, the due diligence part. So I think those are more based on the risk management principles that companies do have practice to investigate and research. And not to mention about the mergers and acquisitions, getting into joint venture, you want to evaluate whether you're dealing with the right kind of parties. So these are, I think, in nutshell, I think more broader common types of investigations that happen. How does it get discovered? I would say, again, I think every company has, I think we heard about the whistleblowing process, the hotline process. Again, I think these are more traditional, where employee would go to their managers or legal, compliance, risk, security functions, raising the concern. Also, organizations these days, especially, they require to have a hotline practice in place so that employees get anonymous reporting channel as well. However, from an e-discovery part or more kind of in the digital world part, I see companies adopting AI a lot. And I think this is really important. I think most companies have gotten into that, or they are in the process of. And it is significantly, I would say, value-adding process, because it throws up exceptions or lights on issues which we would not be able to kind of know upfront based on our, I would say, siloed processes. So I think that's another thing which is coming up significantly in this digital kind of world, where everything is getting connected through AI, robotics. So I think it's kind of getting into that mode as well, that now a lot of, I would say, matters are coming to light based on significant review of extensive databases. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavin. Next question is for Ahmed. What are the key steps for a successful investigation?
Yeah, well, actually, so the investigations or the investigation processes can differ from investigation to another investigation based on the nature of this investigation, the participants, and the objectives that I'm trying to achieve after having this investigation done. However, we have some key steps or major milestones we need to consider while conducting any investigation to ensure that we're getting the right outcomes within a reasonable timeline, because the main challenges in any investigation that we may take a very long time without getting any conclusions. So business is suffering and the reporter is losing the trust toward the company, which we really don't need to reach to this stage. So as the first milestone, I would like to start with the immediate reaction. So we should have some kind of immediate reaction, definitely. So this is different from a case to another case. So for example, I may need to shut down the server if I got investigation that we're having leakage or we're having some problems in the data security. So I need to shut down the server immediately or check the server to see to eliminate any problem and to mitigate any problem to happen during running the investigation time. Or if it's the investigation regarding any harm to any of the employees, so we should stop this harm point before conducting or running the investigation. So after that, which is the most important stage in my point of view, which is the planning for the investigation. During this section, we will plan how the investigation will look like. Do I need to run interviews? Do I need to hire a third party with more experts, with more resources, so they can help me in running the investigation in a very perfect way? Or I need to get back to documents maybe years ago, maybe this year, maybe I need to visit another one, maybe I need to travel. In addition to that, the investigation committee, because as you all aware, that we are not as compliance. We know how compliance works very well, but when it comes to deep or technical finance or deep or technical medical, I may need to get help from different departments. So also this is really important in the planning stage. So after the planning stage, we move to the data collection. Data collection can be through interviews and through going through the documents, going through the system, going through the emails. But if we are talking about the interviews, so the interviews is the most important step in running any investigation, because based on the interviews and the questions you're asking to the involved party, you get better outcomes, or you will get nothing. So it's really important here to plan the interviews ahead. Write down the questions that you're going to ask. Okay, put different scenarios. Even think about your tone. Think about your body language. What you want to achieve exactly from having this interview. And all question answers and everything happened during this interview should be noted down. You may think that this information will not add any value to you, but you never know. Maybe in the consolidation stage, you need this information. So that's why it's really important to write down all notes and everything happened during the interview stages. After that, we collected a lot of information already. We have built some knowledge about the case, about the background, about what happened. It's the stage for the data analysis where we consolidate all data together, start to draft the report. But there is one thing important here we need all to consider. And this is always happening in the day-to-day business. I could see the involved departments just pushing the compliance or pushing the investigator to complete the investigation report, maybe because they wanted to take some actions or they wanted to close this. So as I always doing, I'm not letting anyone push me during the investigation, since I have the sufficient plan ahead and I know what I'm doing exactly. I'm documenting everything. Because actually, if you let people pushing you to complete the investigation and get outcomes at as early as possible, this may impact your concentration and the final outcomes from the investigation. So after all of that, it comes to the final report, or the one that all compliance people are looking for, which is the mitigation actions or the investigation recommendation. As compliance organization, and I believe also for legal, so we give recommendation. We don't give mitigation action plans. So I could see that's happening. So I give you a recommendation based on that. I could see this person is guilty. So I will leave it to the HR and legal to decide the best disciplinary action or enforcement action. But my role as a compliance is to ensure that the stakeholders or the business owners already taken or developed the mitigation action plan, a smart mitigation action plan with reasonable timelines. So this is my responsibility. And another responsibility for investigation to ensure or monitor the closure of the mitigation action plans on time. I think that's a general view on the common process that can be followed in each investigation process. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. This is now the third question is by Yogesh V. Nair, and this is for Mumtaz. How do you relate investigation in a criminal trial with e-discovery, and how would you establish the e-discovery in the absence of a provision in penal law?
India is not a very well-versed market in terms of e-discovery. E-discovery is a system which is more prevalent in developed nations like US. India still relies on the traditional form of discovery, which is your discovery under the Civil Procedure Code. While there's no specific prohibition, but challenges such as privacy laws, because we are still struggling to get our data privacy laws in line with the European GDPR. We don't have laws in place. And as I said, it's a very diverse culture, and the lack of technology forms a very, very important and integral part of investigation in e-discovery. And I think less than maybe 20-30% of lawyers or investigators would make of the more tech sound and technologically equipped people who can handle e-discovery and investigation trends in India. While investigation in the traditional crimes like a typical essential criminal trial relating to any offense under the IPC, government is trying to come up with newer and newer investigation technologies, like getting the so Maharashtra government has got the AMBIS system, which is biometric system for identifying criminals. If you get into Andhra Pradesh as a tourist, they have a system to real-time track every visitor if that visitor has a criminal antecedent or not. Likewise, UP has its system in place. Delhi government is now trying to come up with biometric identification to identify criminals and all. But the main advent has been in place of financial crimes. With the advent of, with the amendment in PMLA in 2018, where the Prevention of Money Laundering Act was amended, the government has almost seamlessly merged all the departments for information sharing, while Bhavin and Ahmed emphasized on compliance is required in a company and having a lack of vision on what to do in it regarding litigation, and just reported to an HR. In India now, if there's a financial reporting, or if there's a risk, or if there's a suspicion, it not just goes to the FIU, which is the Financial Intelligence Unit. The company is obligated to inform the relevant the reporting authorities obligated to inform the agencies about the suspicious activity, financial activity, or a suspicious act that has occurred. While I can't speak on the same tone for both kinds of crimes, but the major trend in investigation has been where even e-discovery could play a role is in the financial crimes, because I think that's the biggest challenge India has been battling with for a long period of time, ever since there have been fugitives from India who've left. So here, these amendments make way where people, the compliance officials of a company. So there are two-step mechanism. It's the compliance officials of a company, and then it's the department under the government of India. The compliance officials of the company have to track down suspicious transactions. Now, what do you call a suspicious transaction? So there's a limit of declaring your PAN card if you have a transaction of more than 50,000 Indian rupees. So what will a person do? He'll make a transaction of 10,000 over 5 days, and that's a suspicious transaction to be reported. And if there's a transaction of up to 10 lakh in a period of 30 days, that's a transaction to be reported. There are some check marks. It's not a watertight compartment. And as far as a company is concerned, a company is supposed to be exonerated from any liability if it can show that there were adequate procedures in place. They don't have to go beyond reasonable measures to ensure compliance. They have to have a system, a compliance system in place, and they have to have a compliance officer who checks about that. If that's in place, it all works well. But if we talk about e-discovery, yes, India has also started relying on WhatsApp chats, social media, presence of people, getting seamless information between an income tax department and a customs department. But there's no legal act which really governs these documents. While there has been an amendment in the IT Act as well to include evidence as electronic evidence too, there isn't an e-discovery law as such which can compel a person to give access to that person's data, unless it's investigation into a cyber crime and we rope in the provisions of the IT Act. So yeah, while e-discovery is the in thing, we are still, because of lack of data privacy laws and lack of laws in this regard, we are still a step behind in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mumtaz. Yes, please.
Thanks you all. See, this topic is very core to my heart, because investigation, litigation, first is accusation, then investigation, that is led to litigation if you take action on the investigation. And why? Because I am bearing all three cap: legal, compliances, and risk also. So all I have to take care. And what few cases what I have seen that we have some employee which has been accused of a crime. We did our investigation. We have sufficient evidence, but not the concrete evidence. But we have to terminate the employee. Okay, because we have to send the message also to the organization at large. And without having sufficient evidence, we are going to terminate, and it will lead to litigation. So
separation they go for, wherein obviously we do not say that employee is terminated. As at the same time, we kind of get it in writing from the employee that he will not have any claims or go to the court in such cases. Anything, Mumtaz, from your side on the litigation part? If it happened
Yeah,
to-
pretty much. So if we also get requests from our clients that what to do in such a case, our first endeavor is to tell them that please do it mutually. But more often than not, you deal with notorious elements that don't want a mutual separation. What do you do in such a case? If it's a purely contractual employment and it's not governed by your industrial laws, then we tell them to go for a no-fault termination, because a no-fault termination is you pay XYZ amount months of salary and get done with it. Even if the person challenges such a termination, in India, usually contract of personal service cannot be specifically enforced. So there's nothing really that the employee can do except suing for damages, and damages in such cases are your notice period salary. That's it. That's what the law is. But in cases where it's an industrial employee and you can't really get rid of them very easily, what we usually advise our clients is, in case there is a concrete material against the person which is not conclusive but it points to a wrongdoing, depending on the nature of the wrongdoing, we ask them to either appoint an external investigator to investigate into it as a HR investigation which is carried out by an external audit, or we ask them to instead of the investigation, we ask the client to file a police complaint if it's an offense of a criminal nature, or it's about money, misappropriation of money and things like that. So yeah, it depends on a case to case basis. It's not a straight jacket formula for anything. It depends on the kind of crime or the kind of wrongdoing or a non-compliance that we are dealing with, or the issue that we are dealing with. So it's not a one-size-fit-all formula, but it's largely between a mutual separation to a no-fault termination to an investigation or to a complaint. These are the 4 steps that we look at it from a litigation perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mumtaz. Thank you, Bhavin. This is the last question that we're taking because we just have 5 minutes before we go for lunch. So this last question is for Ahmed. What happens when investigation is complete, and how could companies protect its case reporter from any potential retaliation?
Yeah, so before we go through this point, we need to define the retaliation, what retaliation means, and how we think that this is a retaliation incident or a retaliation action. As any company, the successful of compliance culture to promote the speak-up culture. So the speak-up culture, the employees are reporting the incompliant practices to the hotline, to the legal team, to compliance, to HR team. So we ensure the partnership between the company or the company's management and the employees to have a successful compliance program and enable the company to live the compliance culture. By having said that, usually the employees or the reporters don't like to report because they fear from the consequences that may happen in case they reported a case, especially if this person that they reported against him, he holds a senior role in the company or maybe the direct line manager. So in this situation, okay, we need to protect our employees or our reporter from any potential retaliation action that may happen. And the retaliation here could be direct and could be indirect. So shouting on him, this is a retaliation. Rotating him from a city to another city, this is a retaliation. And we have, there could be indirect retaliation instance. For example, he is treating all the peers in a different way than he's treating this person. This is also a retaliation. And to protect them from the retaliation, back to the main topic. So this could be during the reporting itself. So we could consider this person anonymous. So we don't mention to his name. If he decided to do that, and also we can decide not to mention to his name based on the investigation case, is definitely. And another thing that could happen, we evaluate the interactions that can happen between this reporter and this line manager, or the person who holds a managerial role in the company. For example, he could be responsible, they could interact in setting the objectives. So compliance can have some kind of coaching session with the line manager, or why not? We can have a review on the goals and objectives that the people usually setting in the beginning of each year, to see that there have some balance between him and his peers. Also, in the final appraisal, or in the year-end appraisal, also compliance can check, can see what's happening there, to ensure that there is no retaliation. Yeah, I think that's really important. So that's I think I answered the question. So
thank you, Mr. Mehta. Thank you, Ms. Bhalla, and thank you, Mr. Kandil.